Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Packers.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Can't believe I got through that intro without laughing. How are we doing tonight, boys?
We're great.
Get ready to go.
I'm doing great.
We've been having so much fun with that drop.
Get ready to go.
I am Coach. What's his name again? Johnson. Coach Johnson. Big Johnson over there.
Anyway. Whoa. Family show, Clay.
Family show.
Get ready to go.
So, obviously, we got some news to break that broke earlier today that involves the Packers in the North anyway, as coaching hires are starting to fall into place, all that good stuff. So we'll hit on that. I wanted to lead off with something just to get it out of the way, and then we'll dive into some of those headlines. Tim, if you can get me a screen grab ready, doesn't matter which one it is. We're gonna wear it out.
Why does all the drops I hate have to do? Here we go. Get ready to go. Where are we going? Stop using go.
Get on board, Jacob.
Okay.
You left behind.
So you like red light, green light better, Jacob? Then
Sure.
Okay, I like it.
All right, Tim, you got that screen grab ready? Here we go, boys. So this was on a podcast earlier today. It was on the Games with Names podcast. Actually, not earlier today. It's when I seen it earlier today, which is Julian Edelman's podcast. And he had Cam Jordan, right, from the Saints. One of the better defensive linemen in the last decade, to be honest with you. Just a solid kind of he's a versatile defensive lineman. He plays inside more than out, but in a 4-3, he could play defensive end. And they were just talking specific.
Thick.
Yes, he is. They were talking about that was bad timing to say he's thick, right, when I said they were specifically talking about the sack. So we're talking about, obviously, the sack statistic here, all right? Go ahead and play this. And I want you guys to just kind of tell me if this sounds familiar or not.
I think a sack is an overrated stat.
Is it overrated? What do you think's better, TFL?
Playing the actual game. Winning the game is what's important. Because some guys get so caught up in like, I got to get sacks. And we look at it like, oh, he's the best because he had 19 or 20 or 22 sacks, but he's not worth a damn in the run. But we don't talk about it. He's the DPOY, but he's a liability on the outside zone stretch plays.
Yeah.
He's the best, but he swims B gaps and C gaps. And like the linebackers hate him, but you'll never know it.
He's the best, but he runs past the quarterback all the time because he's trying to get around the hump.
He does 11-yard
He's playing Lamar Jackson and he can run for 40 yards and it's man coverage. That's his gap. And it's 3rd and 12 and the team shouldn't have any shot of getting that 3rd down, but you ran past the quarterback. But you got to sack the play before.
Right. You look at the stat sheet, he's like, he killed it. What else did he do for the game? What impact did he have on the game? Is he a game wrecker? Absolutely. Strip, sack, fumble? Nothing like it. But liability in all other phases? Does that actually help your team win? Or now we're just praising you for the splash plays that you can't create?
I agree.
I think
All right, so there you go. Obviously, that was Cam Jordan and Julian Edelman talking about the sack. Listen, we said it all along. The sack is a good thing, right? You get a strip sack, like you said, there's nothing better than that. You force a turnover, obviously. But this whole talk this year, I thought this lined up perfectly with what we experienced all year long. You've seen the run defense improve dramatically from last year, and the sack numbers went down. This is what we're talking about. This is how you take that next step as a defense. Now, listen, there are times that you want to turn those guys loose and let them use that. Like we showed Devontae Wyatt last night with the spin move, all that stuff, right? That's important. But like Cam was saying there, man, if you're not gap sound and you're not playing within the scheme, which that's where I do want to tip my cap to Kenny Clark. We've been on Kenny's case all year long. But, boy, you talking about playing unselfish. There was many times that he just hovering around that A gap, kind of hanging out. And you could tell that was by design, occupy the double team, make sure they don't create a rush lane up the middle and play the run first. So just want to get your all's take on that. And then we'll hit the super chat. And Jacob, I know you got limited time. I want to see what you want to talk about, man.
Yeah, if you want to start with me, I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast multiple times. I know Ryan's talked about it, that pressures are in hurries. It's a very underrated statistical category, really. And you know, I really do think, like Cam Jordan said it best, like, yeah, the stat line, that's going to jump out. We've seen multiple players in recent history that quote unquote had a good year because they had 8 sacks, 10 sacks. When you look at all the other metrics, PFF grades, other statistics, Whether or not, like you said, it's I think D-line might be one of the harder statistical guys to grade based on like how they actually do help the team, quote unquote, win. You know, like the sack numbers are what's going to jump off the page, but the pressures, the hurries, and like the containment, the zone assignments, you know what I mean? Certain things that there's not a statistical category for if you had contain, you know what I mean? Like, or we don't know necessarily what, in this instance, Hafley's got you dialed up to do. So I think that means, yeah, right there, do your job. I'm excited about where this group is. Could they make improvements? I think, heck yeah, for sure. But, you know, that's where I love my boy Cox. He's got that pressure. You know what I mean? It's not all about a good sack. Sometimes you need pressure from Cox.
Just the tip, though.
Follow that up, Emilio. You've got the mic.
I couldn't even get to the thick drop fast enough. But yeah, I don't even know where Jacob was going with that. Seriously.
What do you mean,
No, I'm kidding. No, for real though, Jacob. It's yeah, I mean, it's what
Get
it's
ready
going
to
to
go.
be. Yeah, we need to because we're going to be chasing that defense again. And I think that
Really?
oh my god,
Dude, we got you, dude. It's off season. Emilio's packed it in. He can't handle it anymore.
I cannot believe Jacob walked us down this line already.
I'm crying.
Oh,
I think what he's saying is actually valid though, because there's no grade for
Right.
doing your job, right? There's no gap integrity grade or and I think when we talk about football, you look at the offensive side of the ball. If you ask a guy to block and he runs out for a pass instead, that guy's going to get screamed at and probably pulled off the field. So when you flip to the defense, if you're an edge guy or you're a defensive tackle and you're being asked to stunt or twist or occupy a gap or a blocker and you choose to rush the quarterback or you choose to over pursue in the name of, the almighty sack totals that you want on your stat sheet, then I think the same approach should be taken. You should be pulled off the field and, talked to by your coaches and realize that, this is 11-on-11 football. Nobody should have personal agendas out there. It's like Coach Len said, just do your job,
right. Okay, that's where I was going. Thank you. So it's really hard to put the run defense grade into a stat. You know what I mean? So like when you're out there playing 60 snaps a game, 40, 50, 60 snaps, you get 4 tackles, but you filled every single C gap when you were told, you stunted. You do. When we do our TT stunts and you're unselfish and you throw your shoulder into someone's hip and try to knock 3 guys out of the line just so your boy can get a sack, that's the stuff you can't get on a stat sheet. There's no way to track that unless you're watching the tape. So that's the kind of stuff I think that can slip through the cracks, and that maybe you're checking out hurries and sacks, and maybe you just need to, either check tape or, figure out a way for you to track it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I just wanted to play it because it's a guy who's played in the league for a very, very long time, played unselfishly within different schemes there, obviously with Dennis Allen, and before that with Greg Williams, and been very, very successful at the pro level. So I just thought it was important. Let's hit this super chat. Well, actually, before we hit that, let's hit these last ones in regard to that. Ari Ironminer, definitely need more pressure when we need it. Twofold, help the guys out in the back. Pressure
pick, coverage, sack, right? Don't we say that a lot?
And listen, sacks are good. Don't take this the wrong way. It's just you got to understand when people's numbers go down. In this case, everybody's sack numbers went down this year. The answer is always on the tape. The problem is most people are too lazy to dig through the tape and find the answer. They just want to find the hot button answer, and we won't name drop any Twitter accounts that do that on a regular basis, but they know it gets interaction. Just like the Christian Watson situation always gets interaction. If you call him soft, if you say he's injury prone or he's not a good receiver, those people who have tried to make a living on Twitter hating on the dude are going to come flooding in to try to validate it, right? It's just, again, the answer is always on the tape. Joseph says phase 2 of half transition coming next season. We'll see more pressures, but still discipline. See, that's the thing too. Finding the guys that truly fit the scheme and what you want them to do, right?
Yeah. Sack numbers went down, but our run defense went up, and we had 31 turnovers the most since 2011. So yep. We got to pick our poison there.
Exactly. Yep. Josh Martin with the super chat. Cup might be available. Talking about Cooper Kupp. Would he fit with us? And he said this earlier. I want to hit it real quick. Josh Martin said, if Cooper Kupp is available, would it make sense to trade for him instead of Adams or signing Higgins? Oh, let's see. Cooper Kupp. I don't know what his contract situation is.
So I saw today that if they were to cut him outright, that they'd save $15 million against the cap, and that he's only due like $5 million this year or something weird like that. Like, it was shocking.
Got it.
Couldn't
So
they
he's
just
pretty much.
re-sign him after they cut him though?
I'm sorry.
Or no? Could they re-sign him after they cut him? Like, can they save that money off the top by cutting him and then re-sign him to like
Would that kind of be a restructure? Isn't that the same kind of?
Maybe.
You know what I mean? I don't know. To me, it would seem crazy that they would let him walk away if it's a difference of. Even $15 million to me is not that insane. You know.
Yeah.
Ron said Cooper Kupp's cap hit is 38 this year.
We're talking next year, right?
So I'm getting ready to pull it up right now. Let's see.
I don't know. I think I'm all the way off on the T. Higgins train, if that's what you're talking about. I unhooked that a while ago. Yeah. That thing is still at the station.
All right,
I still think.
Go ahead, Jake.
No, just real quick. I still, like Clayton said a few episodes, Godwin, to me, the Godwin Adams are like A1, A-B, or 1A, 1B. But, Cooper Kupp, man, I love that guy. I really, really love him. So that'd be cool to get the late career resurgence here in Green Bay.
All right, so here's what we got with Cooper Kupp's contract. 2 years left. You got 2025 and 2026. The cap hit for 2025 is $29.7 million. Oof. The cap hit in 26 is $27.3 million. Now, here's the dead cap attached. In 2025, the dead cap number is 22.2. So if they cut him outright, they would free up $7.5 million in cap space. All right. So that's what they're weighing out. Is it worth it to have Cooper Kupp back at the tune of, we can either free up $7.5 million. They can restructure as well. When you talk restructure, roster bonus, $7.5 million and base salary 12.5. So you've got $20 million that you could potentially restructure, play it on the safe side and save $15 million. You could free up that $7 million by doing a simple restructure and still keep your star wide receiver. I have a hard time believing Cooper Kupp's not going to be on that team next year. We'd have to look at kind of what's his injuries been like, this and that. But if we were to trade for him, what would essentially happen is we would be responsible for the base salary of $12.5 million along with the roster bonus of $7.5 million, which would make it right at $20 million is the ways I would understand that. Because any money that's already been paid out in guaranteed form, which would be signing bonus proration and restructure proration, all those would still lie with the Rams under that cap hit number. Basically, all that accelerates if he is traded. Now, if you do a post-June 1 type deal, there's some other things that might come into play a little bit, but that's really the most realistic numbers right there. If it's me and you're saying, okay, you can trade for Cooper Kupp, right, and you'll be on the hook for $20 million next year against the cap, of course, we could restructure that as well once he gets on the roster, right? That's something that could happen, and it could be an agreement on the front side. I don't know, man. How old is he? How old is Cooper Kupp? What are we looking at here age-wise?
Around 30, right?
Let me see here real quick. It shows us. Yeah, he's 32. You're looking at a 1 or a 2 year fix is what you're looking at. Right? So,
well, if we're trying to get over the loss of Christian Watson for pretty much a season, it's not the worst idea. Playing in the McVay offense as long as he has, he'd probably fit in pretty well here in this offense. Mm-hmm. I'm with you though. It's hard to say no to a guy like that because he's so damn good, Right. But it's like, is that the guy? Let me ask you this: who do you want more? The Tay Adams train or the Cooper Kupp train? Like which? What are you really thinking here? As far as because either one of those, right. A veteran receiver at this point is exactly what that is. It's a 1 or 2 year max kind of scenario.
What do you think about Drew's comment here? Saying based on how Goody talks, I don't think we're getting a big name wide receiver or a first round wide receiver. He doesn't seem to value wide receiver ones.
Yeah, now the way he's sounding in his presser, they're happy with the receiving core we got. But also in the presser last year, he made it sound like Aaron Jones was coming back hell or high water. So, it's what are you going to listen to, right?
He said they're not, opposed to it either. He was kind of talking about, we're not opposed to it completely, but it's got to be right, for everybody and stuff like that. Tim, if you're putting that water gun up in the air and you're telling me to choose, I would hook the locomotive up to Tay rather than Cup or Higgins, honestly.
What about Godwin?
Yeah, Godwin. We talked about Chris Godwin. If that
Coach
ankle,
makes up a good point. He's only 28.
yeah, if he's good with that ankle injury and close to 100%, I'd put him right underneath Tay as far as my favorite.
If you think about it, he has been the number 2 to arguably the best, most reliable wide receiver 1 since Jerry Rice or something. He's the first player to have 8 or 9 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons.
Certainly the most consistent,
right?
Probably, for sure.
Yeah, you talking about Mike Evans?
Mike Evans,
yeah. Right. I'm just saying Chris Godwin maybe hasn't gotten to show what he actually has because he's got a guy. He's playing second fiddle to arguably an instant Hall of Famer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm always going to revert back to, and this is probably a flaw because the game changes. What the all-time greats, the way they looked at roster structure, and it's wide receivers the last piece you put in place. Yep. And what that means is it doesn't mean you don't go get wide receivers along the way and try to find the right guy. It just means if you're going to make that splash, hey, we're going all in on this receiver, you better have every damn thing else in line or you're going to really screw yourself up. Yep. Look at the Bears. The Bears tried to do that. The Bears bought into the hype. Hey, we got this generational talented quarterback. Let's go surround him with great wide receivers, and their trenches sucked, right?
The Bears still suck.
Perfect drop. So that's kind of how I see that. Anything else you guys want to add to that before we move on to this head coaching hires here?
I mean, just adding to my point of hooking the train to Adams rather than anybody else. Get the vibe. Adam wants to come back. This is Bates. He seems to want to finish his career being happy playing ball after the Raiders-Jets stint. He's been here before. He knows the offense. I mean, all that stuff is key. Right. When you bring in a Godwin, you still have to learn it.
And there's a good chance that you can get Tay with no trade capital, right? Because what I anticipate happening, I don't think a lot of people are going to be lining up to trade for Devontae Adams. There may be a couple swoop in there, but the Jets are definitely – he's not playing on that contract, right? Mm-hmm. They can cut him and free up something crazy like $25 or $30 million. So if they wait it out, he becomes a free agent. Now, obviously, the bid's going to go up a little bit, right? If you go in and trade for him and he agrees to the trade, you're taking him off the market so you don't have to bid against those other teams.
Right.
But I'm with you. I kind of feel like Tay, if you asked Tay, where would you want to play this year, outside of a couple of teams like maybe a Kansas City Chiefs that's championship ready, you're probably looking at someone like the Green Bay Packers where you're going to go back to familiarity and obviously you want to win one for Titletown, the team that believed in you and drafted you in the second round. So
would you take a pay cut to come back?
Right.
Kind of thing. That's the second question you got to ask him.
Yeah. Let's clean up the chat real quick here. We got Josh Martin says, I'm not worried about Ben Johnson going to the Bears. The Bears will always suck. Amen.
Get ready to go.
Josh Martin says, Hafley expected not to get any head coaching job this year, according to Eli Berkovitz, which we've kind of talked about that all week. The writing's on the wall there. I'd be really, really surprised if Haf does get a head coaching job. Boz says, sounds like they will lose their DC as well to the Jets, talking about Aaron Glenn in Detroit. And then Mountain Man Pack, very glad that Hafley will be back. Now we need a good D-line coach, which obviously the Packers are stirring the pot there, looking around the league. And Ron Sample says D-line coaching was a weakness also. We will see what direction they go there. That's something they're obviously looking to improve on. Now, the secondary improved immensely this year because Hafley being the DB whisperer and obviously Derek Ansley coming over, former DC for the LA Chargers, another guy that's really, really good with DBs. Now go out and find you a defensive line guru. That should be kind of the game plan there. But let's just walk around some of this coaching news real quick.
Get ready to go.
Jacob, you just go when you need to go, brother. All right. Don't feel like you got to make a formal announcement or anything, but stay as long as you want, man. Until we kick you out. So here's the breaking news earlier today. Adam Schefter, more years in Minnesota. The Vikings and head coach Kevin O'Connell have reached an agreement on a multi-year contract extension per sources. He was scheduled to be entering the last year of his contract, but no longer. There was rumors of teams calling Minnesota and looking to trade for KOC, and then you immediately think, okay, they're probably having in mind if they did that, Brian Flores will be promoted to head coach, and they just continue right on with this run that they're on. KOC staying in Minnesota, if I was a Vikings fan, I would be happy with this. To me, I would want him to be the head coach over B-Flow because you guys know I tend to lean toward an offensive-minded coach as a head coach as opposed to a defense. And that's where I think the Bears, I hate to admit it, but I think they did good with Ben Johnson. As good as you can. It doesn't mean he's going to be a good coach. He may fall flat on his face. But when you kind of take everything into consideration outside of Mike McCarthy, to me it would have been Ben Johnson, Mike McCarthy. I think Ben Johnson's probably the right hire. But here with Minnesota, anything you guys want to add to that? Any comments on that?
It's going to be a tough NFC North moving forward. I mean, he wasn't a bad coach, got him to 14 wins. He did something right. So,
yeah, it was interesting to see how the Vikings fandom wanted KOC's basically head on a platter after having did you say 15 wins? Is that right? Was it 14? At least 14, I know.
Yeah, at least.
And the guy with a quarterback who was yesterday's trash to every other team in the league that nobody gave a chance, a flying, you know what chance. And I think, I would have loved if they fired KOC because that would have been the stupidest thing they could have done. So somebody just brought up a good point in here. Joseph talking about how the NFC North opponents are light in draft capital this year. I think that may be one of the only things that's going to hurt a lot of these, other than the Packers. I mean, obviously we're going to be in Green Bay,
Minnesota.
Especially Minnesota.
Like 4 picks or 3 or 4 picks or something.
I believe that is correct, and I believe Chicago also kind of hamstring themselves, and Detroit maybe doesn't have a full slot as what they would. Even if they do, Olabasi, the guy that's the GM, right? Or I'm sorry, is it
I don't know how to say his name.
Kwesi and Fano or whatever his name is. Kwesi.
Don't be cussing on.
Oh! He was supposed to be this draft guru. Do you guys remember? He was supposed to be this really smart GM, analytically, really gifted. And all I see is, I mean, they've been lucky. What was it? The year before, they had the most one-score wins of all time in history. And then this year, they take a backup quarterback and absolutely run the table with him until you get into the playoffs. I don't think Brian Flores is going to ever be hired as a head coach in this league again. From all the horror stories I read about that guy and how power affected him, I don't know. Maybe Clay knows more about that than I do, but I feel like that this was a no-brainer. They had to bring this guy back. If they would have fired him and brought in Brian Flores to be the head coach, I would have thought I would have lost my mind. Just
yeah, I think it would have been the wrong move for sure.
Yeah, so in other words, this is not good news for us.
That's the way I see it.
Packer fans, this is not good to hear this. You were kind of hoping they would drop the ball. But we'll see what happens to his staff, though. Like we said, going to be changing of the guard and a lot of those position coaches and coordinators. So, but KOC is clearly a well-respected and highly qualified coach. So, like Emilio said, man, the North, if anything, with these shifts, the North just got even more competitive than it was this year.
Yeah. J. Cole in the chat says, I can see Minnesota drafting Ashton Gianti.
I can see that.
Boy, that would be wild to think about him in the backfield and have obviously those wide receivers going deep. Emilio, we've been working on this draft board. Some would say it's the greatest draft board in PTA history, right? We're putting together a mega draft board. It's big, it's beautiful.
It is.
What people are saying. So with that being said, I'm sure you've noticed it too, as we've both been in there kind of looking around on the draft board that we're putting the information in. He might be our best prospect on the entire board this year.
Yeah, that man might be gone in the top 5, almost guaranteed. He's unreal. Just the consistency over. I mean, from 22 to 23 to 24, he was top 20 the entire time. In entire college, that's crazy. Dude put up unreal numbers. He's fast. He can block. He's got hands. All that. He can block. Thank you.
I'm not saying he's the best blocker, but I mean, he might be. He might be the best blocker.
Let's move on to the Ben Johnson hire. You may or may not have seen this come across the wire. You out of here, Jacob?
No, just real quick. Dan Lange, just to put a pin in it, says the Vikings have 3 draft picks this year. I don't know if that's true. Chat, fact check that. But if that's the case, then okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So obviously they made their pick in Chicago with Ben Johnson. And here was the intro video he put together. I got to be honest, this made me cringe.
Get ready to go.
Many people on Twitter are saying, yeah, I don't see this dude leading the locker room. Relax being one, obviously, on Twitter. Here we go, though.
All right, Bears Nation, get ready to go. Beyond fired up to be here. This is exciting times. Cannot wait to get to work. Bear down, baby. All right, Bears.
Still suck.
Right, he looks like if Voldemort mated with one of those albino cats.
Yeah.
The hairless albino cats. That's what he looks like, man.
It was just strange. It was, I don't know. Am I the only one that got kind of like weird? And you guys know, I've been the guy has 1,000. There's the line of the night. Put a pin in it. Yeah. So obviously that gives us this wonderful new drop that we've got. We get it in audio.
Get ready
form,
to go.
right? And we've also got, this is probably my favorite. Tim, let's show them the remix we put together earlier. Let's play the remix. Key it up for me. I'll take care of Ben Johnson here. All right. Let's celebrate the awkwardness of their new head coach, man. I just need a little background music anytime you're ready. Oh, get ready to crank it, Tim.
Get ready to go. Get ready to go.
There it is.
Get ready to go. Get ready to go. Get ready to go.
So that is at the end.
You hurt me, bro.
Good morning.
I don't know, man.
That was perfect again.
Yeah. We didn't even plan it, did we? We just got it. So anyway, Ben Johnson, how are we feeling about it, boys? Are we worried? Again, if I was a Bears fan, I would have wanted Ben Johnson or Mike McCarthy. I probably would have leaned toward Mike McCarthy. Super Bowl experience, help mold Aaron. People do not give Mike McCarthy the credit that he deserves in molding Aaron Rodgers in the player that he became. That quarterback camp that Mike McCarthy put his guys through, that's so famous in Green Bay, ball handling skills and all that stuff that they worked on, Tim. Obviously, I think he kind of gets shunned way too often being Mike McCarthy. But Ben Johnson would have been my second choice. Great offensive mind. Go get you a stud defensive coordinator, and I think they're going to be in a lot better shape than they were last year because they don't have a defensive coach at the helm.
I would agree, and I think the one silver lining in this too, like you said about Mike, is that the Bears got a first year head coach here, so there's always that factor, right? You've never been a head coach in this league. Some guys are naturals, some guys do not handle it well, and they're better suited as coordinators. We've seen this time and time again in this league. One and done head coaches or 2-year head coaches, and they're back, coordinating an offense or a defense. So that's a good thing. I think if the Bears would have hired Mike, that really would have made things interesting, being experienced and, his grasp of the game and his offensive approach too. So I'll take it. We'll see how this goes. I'd be willing to bet first play from scrimmage is like, a double reverse flea flicker, something crazy from that young offense there in Chicago with that first year trick play merchant that they have as a head coach. So we'll see. You never know.
Yeah.
That's it. I was going to say, I like Jason Wise' point here. Question is, will Caleb's ego actually allow him to follow the game plan? A lot of his sacks came from him seeming to think he can make it play whenever he wanted. I think that's going to be an issue. And it's kind of, Matt ran into the same thing, right? He's an offensive coach. All right, he's got to also handle the defense, handle the special teams, handle the players. He's got to give the halftime speeches. He's got to give,
Get ready to go.
And I don't know if I'm ready to go after that. He might as well keep a headset on the whole time. It makes it look a little bit better when he's got the big ear thing on. But, man, it's going to be hard to get me hyped to run into a wall.
First of all, you and Jacob are both banned from the private chat. How do we block them from the private chat?
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't start it. I just respond.
It is true. Most of the time, that is true.
It's Emilio.
Anything you want to add to that, Jacob?
No, no, I'm good. You guys basically covered it.
So here's the problem I have with Caleb. Man, Emilio really rerouted you there big time, didn't he? That's awesome. He jammed you at the line. You just had a loss reverse. So the thing with, and it's getting noticed more and more as we get into the offseason now, people going back watching the tape. This is the same exact thing you've seen at USC with Caleb Williams. not reading the defense. He's not playing within a scheme. It's a one read, tuck it and go. So much so that they pretty much admitted about 3/4 of the way through the season that whenever whoever their new interim head coach was stepped in, it became a, hey, one read and run offense, because he doesn't know how to get from answer A to answer B. He doesn't know how to use his side adjustments. He doesn't know how to work from one progression to the other, whether it's a pure progression, a pick a side, a high-low read, whatever it is. He struggles with that. It's lock onto the one, crap, where's the rush? And I'm telling you, man, he at one point he was leading the league, and he probably ended up leading the league in sacks with over 4 seconds of time in the pocket. And people look at it and go, man, that offensive line's bad. The offensive line is bad, but a large majority of those sacks were him holding the football too long. Can Ben Johnson coach that out of him? That's going to be the big question, right? I think that's kind of what Jason's saying here too, because Ben Johnson can be a great head coach, and Caleb Williams not willing to or even able to learn how to read a defense and play within the progression and understand, like, he protected the football well. But you know how he protected the football well? He took 8-yard sacks. That's how he protected the football.
And he refused to throw the ball away at all. That's why he had that almost crazy stat. What do you guys think about just when you said how it's going to translate Johnson's game from where he was? Because imagine you're a second in command, third in command, whatever he was, to the kneecap biter, right? The guy that's strictly emotional. I would honestly say that if we were all to be coaches, I'm Dan Campbell. Clay's going to be like a Ben Johnson. Tim's going to be like the defensive coordinator. Emilio's the water boy. But I'm just saying, like, that dynamic, honestly, he's been so used to having another guy be the rah-rah guy, and he's like more of the X's and O's analytical kind of dissector type. Do you see him being able to walk into Chicago and just all of a sudden being able to be, one, the analytical X's and O's, you know, kind of the Matt LaFleur of the offense type, at the same time trying to be the leader of men, you know what I mean? Like the inspirational type, because that is a unique talent that a lot of guys don't have. Mm-hmm. And usually it's dedicated to absolute psychos and ex-players. You know what I mean?
Emilio, you listen to Lombardi's podcast all the time. He calls them play callers, right? There's play callers and there's head coaches. Head coach is totally different than just being a play caller. Matt LaFleur, in my opinion, has struggled to be a head coach, but he's such a damn good play caller, schemer, and understanding exactly how to attack a defense that he can overcome that, maybe not making those decisions on the fly, and damn sure not being able to keep his emotions in check at times, because that does trickle down within the organization, within the team. There's no two ways about that. But Emilio, you've heard that 1,000 times from Michael Lombardi. I think that's exactly what Jacob's pointing out. Ben Johnson may be a better head coach than a coordinator. That's possible.
Yep, right.
But more times than not, these guys get in there and they just, where's my call sheet? Where's my call sheet? What,
like he calls, right, like he calls Kellen Moore joystick. Ben Johnson's past the joystick level, I would say, but we have no idea if he can lead. And I think Joseph was asking earlier, does Matt LaFleur do that either? At first, maybe not. He had a real rough opening. It was, oh shucks, Matt LaFleur for the longest time, right? So that could also, he could build into that. Ben Johnson could. But I do think Matt LaFleur has definitely gotten better and succeeded at leading a team. I do think that the guys can actually really rally behind him in what he says in locker room speeches and things like that. I think that he can scream at somebody on the field to produce, show up better on the practice field, all that stuff, and they'll respond to it. I just think that it's taken him time.
It does. It takes time. I agree with that. And, we know the Bears, if it doesn't work out right away, they're going to cut and run. And it's going to be time to fire someone and bring someone else in. But, good news for Bears fans. I mean, you only got to get 6 wins in 2025 and you've had an improvement. So, I mean, the bar's not super high there. I think they're just looking for someone to kind of right the ship a little bit and, I don't know, point the dumpster away from the fire for a change, maybe just see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to say once again, Clayton is letting the circle of trust be invaded and he's throwing up private chats. You're out of the circle of trust, Clayton.
I don't make the rules here. All right. I just follow them. Let's see here. Yeah. So that whole Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, that's a good comparison, man. Cliff was money this year, right? Yeah. Obviously with Washington, right? I mean, he just took Jaden Daniels, and it was just – could you imagine Ben Johnson with a Jaden Daniels? Oh, my God, right? But, again, Cliff Kingsbury, when he was a head coach in Arizona, what did you see? Him and Kyler Murray going at it. And they had ties back to college where they got along pretty good, right? So the NFL obviously could frustrate anyone. That's for
He
sure.
was battling, Kyler's Xbox.
That's Call of Duty. Yeah, it's Call of Duty's fault more than anything.
Exactly right. United Bates, looks like the Vikes are expected to get a compensatory pick, so may end up with 4. There you go. Appreciate that info. Josh Martin says, reports are former Saints head coach Dennis Allen will be the new Bears DC. I don't think that's a bad move.
Get ready to go.
I'm glad it's not Robert Saleh, though, to be honest with you, right? That would have been one that I'd have been like, oh, crap, right? So I'm not scared of Dennis Allen as a DC. I'm not.
Do you honestly think that, sorry to interrupt, but that Matt LaFleur said to Salah, hey, dude, you're going to come here, you're going to be a consultant. I swear to God, if you go to the Bears, you're dead to me. And you are like, you know what I mean? Honestly, though. And it's like, do not even ask me. Don't text me. I don't want to see that you even talk to him.
We're done. So
I feel like they're too good of friends. I honestly feel like they're too good of friends for him to do that to
That's Matt. What I mean. Like, is it unspoken? Yeah. Is it like if me and Tim were interviewing for a job, I'd be like, Tim, don't screw me over.
Like, come on the low.
J. Cole says, not going to lie, I like the Dennis Allen hire for them too. He's a veteran coach. He's had success in the league as a DC. There's no two ways about that. So much so that he got promoted to the head coach when Sean Payton decided to quit on that team, right? So Chris in the chat, good news for us. Poles is still the GM. Amen to that.
Cooking.
Very well put.
Let them cook. Let Poles cook.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add to this head coaching talk around the NFC North?
Is there anywhere that you guys see Mr. Michael McCarthy going?
Man, that's a great question. Didn't he interview for the Saints? Am I thinking right? I think he interviewed for the Saints. Chicago kind of felt like his best shot, but that doesn't mean he won't get hired somewhere else. I know this: if somebody doesn't hire him, they deserve what they get. You're talking about a dude that's been one of the more successful coaches, not just in NFL or just recently, but in NFL history, right? When you look for all the boxes, right? When you're going to hire a good head coach, give me your top 3 priorities. I know I'm putting everybody on the spot. I can think of at least 2 for me, right? And some qualifications. For me, all right, can he get to the Super Bowl and win it? Most 99% of the coaches that you interview can't say that. He can say that. Hey, I've won one. I know how to do it. All right, cool. Can he mold a franchise quarterback and coach a franchise quarterback? Yeah, he's done it, right? And is he an offensive-minded coach? That he is. Obviously by default with the aforementioned. So that's kind of how I see, all right, what kind of head coach do you want? Now, can he delegate? Can he do what it takes to be a head coach as opposed to just a play caller? I think he proved that for a very long time. Now, listen, I don't know how many years he was here, but he was here longer. If you do something for over 10 years, guys, it's so rare that someone sticks with what they're doing in the same place after a decade. That's just human nature. So yeah, for me, I think it'd be silly if Mike McCarthy didn't have a head coaching job. That's just me personally. So.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would say about the Bears is when they've been good, they have had defensive head coaches. So I don't know if this is going to play out for them super well, but that's just old history. I like what Prince said here. Jags and Raiders were supposedly in the running for Johnson. So maybe Big Mac will get an interview there.
Emilio, to what you just said, I believe I could be fact checked, but I'm almost 95% sure that I read or heard on a podcast that the Bears have never once in their history promoted an offensive coordinator to the head coach position.
Really?
That has always been either a defensive minded person or it's been
an outside hire or something.
An outside hire, somebody that was a lateral type move. So I'm almost 100% positive, and it was the Athletics podcast.
Yeah,
I trust usually for them. So if that's the truth, then that does scare me a little bit, and it does also make me think like, how stupid is the Bears front office to think like, oh, what's the one thing we haven't done in the whole history of our franchise? Should we try it? No.
Get ready to go.
Tim, what did you have? And you were going to say something there, man.
Oh, I was just going to say that I know it's kind of an intangible, but, what I'd look for in a head coach is someone that, basically gets the guys to believe. You have to have them believing in whatever it is you're trying to install. Both sides of the ball, all 3 phases of the game. Everyone has to be bought in. So, can you inspire belief and faith in the message that you're delivering to that locker room, whether you're offensive minded or defensive minded as a head coach? Players in this day and age, coaching is different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Guys don't want to just be screamed at all the time and not know why they're being screamed at. So you got to find someone that can instill that belief and that faith in what you're doing. And, hopefully your guys perform. So I think that's kind of always a roll of the dice with a first-year head coach because they've never had that opportunity yet. Being a DC or an OC is one thing, but having all 53, under your control and getting them all bought in, that's a whole nother ball of wax for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you another spinoff of this coaching talk here. Is Deion going to end up with the Cowboys, boys? Yeah, think about that.
You were talking about, hold on, before we do that, you were talking about McCarthy, and it triggered something in my head. I've heard Steelers fans saying that Tomlin's on the hot seat. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but Mike's a Pittsburgh guy.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy is a
Ooh,
Pittsburgh guy.
He is. Yeah.
Now, the only thing, so you would think like, oh, well, if there's a coaching vacancy in Pittsburgh, maybe they interview McCarthy. But like, do you think that would even happen? I don't think Tomlin's on the hot seat. I think Steelers fans are just kind of upset with how their year ended.
Right. Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, that got tossed around a little bit. Like the Bears called Pittsburgh and wanted to trade for Tomlin. So if they were going to move on from Tomlin, I imagine they would have taken some draft capital for him. Right.
That is so weird. I forget that they can trade.
Yeah. So I think Tomlin is going to be there though. But this is pretty funny. Clay Harbor on Twitter just pulled it up here. He said Mike McCarthy needs Mike Tomlin's publicist. All right. And this is what he said. This is Mike McCarthy compared to Mike Tomlin. They both have coached for 18 years. They both have 12 playoff appearances. McCarthy has 8 divisional titles. Tomlin only has 7. McCarthy's playoff record is 11-11, and Tomlin's is 8-11.
Well,
so
didn't McCarthy beat Tomlin in Super Bowl in 2010?
He did. That is correct, sir.
All right.
So, and again, it is what it is. All right, so let's move it along here. As a matter of fact, let's go.
So back to Deion in Dallas, though. I'm sorry I cut you off. You were saying Deion possibly going to the Dallas job.
I was wondering about it because it was kind of feeling like, to me, it felt like Jerry Jones would go after someone that he could control, right? And that kind of felt like a Ben Johnson. But Ben Johnson probably looked at Dallas and said, hell no, I ain't going there, right? That's probably how that happened. So with that being said, who is Dallas going to hire? Like, who's the top candidate left that Jerry can go out there? Emilio, who comes to mind?
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel's with the Patriots.
Patriots.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's it. There's no one left. And
I heard Josh McDaniels is coming back to possibly be the OC over there. Did you guys hear that?
And you watch, they will be unbelievable, man. Josh McDaniels is a hell of an offensive coordinator.
They'll call Matt Patricia, get the squad together.
To your Coach Prime point, both Shiloh and Shadur are in the draft this year.
I don't.
It's people close to Deion. I think Shannon Sharp said it. Pac-Man Jones said it. The only way that Deion goes to the NFL if he gets to coach his boys. That's what he said. So now I did not hear Deion say that, but people close to him are saying that. It kind of feels like they wouldn't have broken that trust.
You know how much credibility though that he loses because wasn't he just Mr. I'm going to rebuild Colorado. I'm going to be here. I'm going to make this a staple. Like he did, but did he really? Like they got a lot of TV time and but they beat no one. They really didn't.
They doubled their win total the first year he was there, and then he took them to a bowl game the second year.
Yeah, like, I understand it, but like he didn't bring them to like top 10 stat. I mean, he brought them into relevancy, and then they lost every single, real opponent they ever really went up against. In my opinion, I'm being hyperbolic there, but I don't see Deion actually taking over a NFL franchise, and I guess I could be wrong. That they would probably play for him, but do you see him? He'd have to be surrounded by really great offensive minds, right, and schemers and all that kind of stuff, because he'd be more of that Dan Campbell. He's just the forefront of just the guy that's the name. He's the big name, the rah-rah, all that.
That's what he did in Colorado too, man. He went and grabbed his coordinators were former NFL players and people that had instant credibility with the players. So I imagine he would approach it the same way. I could be wrong, but I want to say Warren Sapp was on his staff out there.
Really?
There was another former wide receiver in the NFL there was a bunch of former players that he just went and got a bunch of guys that they played against each other and threw them together. And like I said, Emilio, are you looking anything up for Colorado? Or you?
Yeah, I was trying to. I was just trying to see that because I remember last week we were asking if they were both in the same draft. So they are both on the board, and Shiloh is definitely far enough away from his brother that if it did work out to the fact of they were able to draft both of them, get them both on the team, even if he's undrafted and sign him. I mean that would be enough of a carrot for Jerry to dangle in front of Dion, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so too. I'm trying to pull them up here. Yeah, PFF wise, this is wild. Listen to this. Somebody come listen to this. PFF has Colorado out of whatever there is 130 teams ranked 26. Their overall team grade was an 88.5. Their passing game with under Shadur, a 90.1 was their passing grade. And then coverage grade. Imagine that. Deion Sanders' coach team, 89.6 coverage grade. If you went to their game by game here, they beat North Dakota State. They lost at Nebraska. They won at Colorado State. They beat Baylor at home. They won at Central Florida, lost to Kansas State, won on the road to Arizona, beat Cincinnati at home, won on the road at Texas Tech, beat Utah at home, lost on the road to Kansas, beat Oklahoma State at home, and then lost to BYU in the bowl game, which you guys know how bowl games are. But according to PFF, now maybe that could be some old Deion Sanders fanboys over there too, just grading them high, right? When they don't show us exactly how they grade the games and the snaps, then there's not much we can do, right? But speculate. So, it's going to be interesting though, man. If I got to be real, I hope he goes to Dallas. You're talking about a hell of a storyline. Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders back together. Sign me up, man. I would love to watch that for a season. That'd be fun. So,
do you see Pete Carroll ever coaching in the NFL again?
I mean, I don't know what it's about. Drew a parallel. I'm glad I did. Pete Carroll.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Pete Carroll is old, right?
He's still chopping that gum pretty hard, though.
He looks great for his age. Don't get me wrong, man. His back's probably in better shape than mine. But if I'm an owner of a franchise, I'm not hiring Pete Carroll to run it. It's kind of like the Bill Belichick thing. That's tough, right? If you don't immediately have a succession plan in place for like, okay, if Bill hangs it up in a year or two, you're starting right back over again. If you could go hire, here's the coach in waiting, Bill's going to be the head coach, kind of the same thing with Pete. Maybe it works, but if I'm running a franchise, I'm going for the next young big thing. That's what I'm doing, man.
Get ready to go.
Exactly. Right, Ben. So that's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour two. We appreciate y'all.